This video is going to describe how to import an Excel spreadsheet into an Access database. Many times you're going to find people have the data that you want in an Excel spreadsheet because they don't know Access. So the nice thing is you can import that data into Access. There are three things you can do with an Excel file. One is you can create a brand new, use that Excel file and create a brand new Access table. Or you can take the records of a spreadsheet and append them into a table that already exists. Or you can link an Excel spreadsheet into an Access database table. Now, a couple things. I have an Excel spreadsheet showing here on the screen. A couple things that you want to make sure to look at before you do any importing of Excel data is, first of all, you should have the first row of your data contain the field names. And if you're going to append the records to an existing table, those field names have to be the exact same field name in the Access table. For example, here in cell A2, this field name is company name. Make sure company name is spelled correctly in the exact same way in your Access table. In other words, make sure there's no space in between those two, or the import won't work. It doesn't matter if the data fields are in the same order or not, as long as they're same name. And also, what you have to do is make sure that each column has the same data format. And this gets a little tricky, like in a zip code field. For example, in Excel, this zip code here is entered as a number. Now, you might have an Access database table with the field called zip that is a short text. So you're going to have to format these Excels into a text field format versus a number format, or it won't work. Okay? So the key is make sure they're in the same data type. When you're importing, another thing to keep track of is make sure that you don't have any blank cells. So for example, if I happen to have the company name here blank in one of these, and in my Access data table I had the required field said to be yes, okay, you're going to get an error with that import because there's got to be no content in that cell, and the import's not going to work. So watch out for your required properties too. Now, when you're creating a new table, all you have to do is make sure you have the field names in the first row. And if you don't have them when you import, Access is going to name them field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, and so forth. And again, Access will locate the data between a blank column and a blank row. So make sure you don't have any blank rows in your data and any blank columns, or all the data won't import. Other things to consider, if you have your table has the foreign key field, make sure the contents of that foreign key field meet the referential integrity constraints. In other words, if, let's say this is, we have a line of business is the foreign key for types of business, another table that's already in our Access database. You want to make sure that the contents of that has the words title company, pest control, appraisal services, mortgage broker, cleaning. Okay, you don't want to put like ABC if there isn't an ABC in that referential integrity. And if you have an Excel spreadsheet that you only want to import a little bit of data, you can always use a range name and just import that range name. Now, the key with importing data is you're going to have to close this file. Lastly, I just want to describe if you link the worksheet. A lot of times somebody's familiar with working on a worksheet and that they want to keep working on that worksheet, but you want to link it to that so that they're updating it and you link it to the database and always see that. Well, you have to understand a linked table allows you to see and use the data, but it actually doesn't contain any of the records. So this actually saves space in your database because the data is stored in the Excel file, not in your Access table. However, since it's not in your database, it's only in read-only mode. So you can only look at the data. You can't enter information into that table, edit that information. You'd have to open up the Excel file to do that. And that's the difference between linking. So I'm going to go ahead and close this Excel file, and I'm going to go ahead and open up and use that file to create a brand new table. So I'm going to go over to external data, and I'm going to click Excel because that was an Excel file, and I'll go browse to locate it. Sorry, let me find it here. Okay, and here's my three options. Import it into a new table, which is what I'm going to do. If I want to append it to the records of to a table, you have to select the table you want to append it to. And again, remember the field names must match exactly and the data types must be the same. Or I can link it by creating a link to it. And remember, you actually see the data, but you're not going to be able to update and edit the data. So for this example, we're just going to import it to a new table. And your first step here is it shows you the data below, and it's asking you the question, is your first row contain the column headings? If you forget to check this, it's going to import the data. It's going to name this first column Field 1, Field 2, Field 3, Field 4. I want to actually use that first row to name the fields, and you can see now the first name field is going to be company name, then address, then city, and so forth. Okay, at this point we could go through and change the data. So let's go over to zip code, and you can see it says double text. We're actually going to change it to short text so it matches a short text field in the data table. Okay, we'll click next, and here we can let access add a primary key, which is going to give you the ID field in an auto number data type, or you can choose your own primary key, which I'm going to do, and call it company name. Now we can just name the table, and we'll just name this table companies. And here we can, it asks you if you want to analyze it. You can if you want. You can click finish. Close. And now we have companies, and here we go. Okay, and that's importing the database.